Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I will give some people a moment to jump in. I hope everyone had a great weekend. It is Mental Health Monday, lunchtime edition. Thank you all for being patient. So good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Dr. Sarissa Hugie. I am a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. And every Monday, I have been coming on and doing a live series in relation to all things mental health. And last week, I told you guys I was really excited about the content for today. Previously, we were in an emotional wellness series, but for the past few weeks, we've been talking about the thoughts driving our emotional states because remember, there is this connection between our mental and our emotional states. And really, I stress the importance of, being mentally and emotionally healthy because our mental health really determines the course of our entire lives. The past 2 weeks or so, we have been identifying cognitive distortions and really talking about unhealthy ways of thinking that can contribute to unhealthy emotional states. And again, I can't reiterate enough how mental and emotional health really impact every area of our lives. And therefore, it is extremely critical that we are proactive about our mental health and that we're paying attention. So in regards to negative thinking, we can get caught in this vicious cycle of negative feelings, negative ways of coping, and then behaviors that sort of facilitate that cycle. So if you remember, we talked about cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a type of therapeutic modality discovered by Aaron Beck and some of his colleagues. And really, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT as we call it, is largely devoted to challenging and then changing the cognitive processes that really impact our behavior. So I stated before that mental wellness, mental health is a lifelong journey. So I don't want anyone to be discouraged because we are all certainly a work in progress, and there are always things that we can work on, always things that we can improve upon. And really my goal for this talk is really to create a sense of awareness because awareness is really the first step in change. So last week, I also stated that really I believe that the key to mental and emotional wellness is to know when not to follow your feelings, because some people will say you should never follow your emotions, and that's simply not a true statement. Really the key is knowing when to follow your feelings and when not to follow your feelings, because all feelings are real. Absolutely all feelings are real, but they are based on a perception that may or may not be accurate. And so sometimes acting on those feelings may have significant consequences or repercussions. So today, as I promised, I want to provide you with some tools to help you be proactive about identifying and challenging your cognitive distortions, because that's what we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks. So the first step, as I said earlier, is awareness. The first step in any change is awareness, really identifying, having the knowledge, having the awareness that there's a problem. So the first step in terms of challenging your cognitive distortion is identifying your negative thought patterns or paying attention. So you can do this formally by taking a thought diary and just kind of writing down some of the negative thoughts that you may be experiencing. And I would also write down overly positive thoughts that you're experiencing, so we can have a more balanced approach. But write down when you're having these overly positive thoughts or even negative thoughts, and then writing down the intensity of the emotions associated with those thoughts. And again, it's helpful to write things down because you can see it better, but you can certainly do this on a daily basis. Pay attention to those negative thoughts. And really in the heat of the moment when you're all revved up, this can be difficult. So it's important to slow yourself down, breathe, and really kind of stop yourself and ask these questions. What's going on in my head right now? What is making me feel this way? So what's going on in my head right now? Identifying those thoughts. What is making me feel this way? Kind of sourcing, why am I thinking like this? Why are these feelings coming about? And then what bad thing do I believe is going to happen? Because sometimes our negative emotions are based on prediction, right? It may not even necessarily be something that's happening in the moment. It may be based on what we think is going to happen. So really kind of identifying those thought processes and those emotions that are taking place. So that's step one. Step two is looking at the evidence. And really looking at the evidence is your attempt to be objective and really to look at alternative explanations to what may actually be going on. And this is a little tricky because you're really not trying to disprove what you're thinking and what you're feeling. You're just simply looking at, you're trying to get a more holistic perspective. So, some questions that you may ask yourself is, have I confused a thought with a fact? And then also externalizing yourself or taking yourself out of the problem or the situation. What would I tell a friend if they were having these thoughts? Or what would a friend kind of say about my thoughts? And, how many times has this happened in the past? Or, what proof do I have? So sort of looking at alternative explanations. And I'll give a silly example. One example I'm thinking about is, if you go into a restaurant, a fast food restaurant, and the cashier is normally a friendly cashier. Normally you're able to have a conversation with this person, kind of, very kind person. But today they seem to be short. They seem to be abrupt. They seem to be having an attitude, right? So, it's not uncommon that our natural response would be, well, what's going on with her? Maybe thinking that you may have done something wrong, or, even getting upset to the point where you're, wanting to tell her something about this and, wanting to sort of give her a piece of her mind because she's very direct, she's very short. So step two would be looking at the evidence. Is the restaurant busy right now? What's an alternative explanation? This could just simply be a bad day for her. She could certainly have some things going on at home. So rather than, confusing the thought with the fact, saying that, she may have a problem with you, that may be your perception of things, but it could really be that the restaurant is busy and she doesn't really have time to have a conversation right now. It could be this is a bad day. So rather than taking it personally, sort of look at an alternative explanation. And again, this is not excusing the fact that she's short. This is not denying the fact that she's short, but it's just looking at some other explanations as to what could be going on, right? Am I confusing a possibility with certainty? If I was not feeling low or anxious, or if this wasn't a bad day for me, would I see this situation differently? So maybe this is a bad day for you, and so you're, and it's a bad day for her, so you could potentially be feeding off of the negative energy that the two of you are giving off. So just looking at it from a different perspective, gathering the evidence, considering alternative explanations. And then step three, good afternoon, Kelly. Thank you for joining. Thanks so much for joining. But yeah, and then step three would be moving towards balanced thinking, right? Because this is the ultimate goal. We want to have a balanced way of thinking. We don't want to have a way of thinking that's overly negative or even overly positive. We want to take all aspects into consideration, because if you remember, I talked about dismissing the negative as being a cognitive distortion. If you're only looking at the positive aspect of things and you're not considering the total picture, then your perception is distorted. So our goal in life is not to be void of emotions, because that is part of our divine makeup and our nature. But really the goal is to respond and think in ways that are healthy. And remember, I shared with you my personal practice of not making decisions in a heightened emotional state, negative or positive, not important decisions, certainly, because emotions can be misleading, and our perception of things might be skewed because, again, we don't have all the information. We're not basing it on a total picture. And so this can be tricky because, again, we're not trying to disprove the original thought. based on the evidence, but really considering other factors so that we can gain a healthy perspective. Based on the evidence, is there an alternative way of thinking about this situation? And again, I talk about writing down your thoughts, writing down the intensity of emotions that you may experience. You may also write down alternative explanations. You and you may add it, add something else to it. Add, what the evidence is saying. This fast food worker, she may be short today, but usually she's very nice and kind. Or this fast food worker may be short today, and maybe I just need to give her a break. So this can help you sort of create a more balanced thought, and again, help to balance those emotional states, because the thoughts are really what's driving the emotions. Our perception is really what's driving the emotions. And so we talked about externalizing that, saying, if I were a friend in this situation, what would be my response? What advice would I give? Or, what are other ways that I can handle this situation? And, this may seem like overkill. This may seem, very tedious, but change in general takes a lot of effort. So, practicing, being more aware of your thought processes, practicing, gathering the evidence and considering alternative explanations. Really, the goal is to, again, move you towards a more balanced way of thinking, to change the negative narrative that is often a part of our lives and our thought processes, to break that cycle, that negative feedback cycle of negative thoughts, negative emotions, negative behaviors. In order to break that cycle, we have to make those changes. So, I know that was brief, but I just wanted to provide you all with some information that I thought would be helpful in terms of challenging those cognitive distortions. And really, my goal for these discussions, as I always say, is for us to be more aware and also to take responsibility for our mental health. So I hope that you have found this useful and beneficial. Certainly, if you have any questions, then you can certainly post those in the comments or inbox me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions or point you into any resources that might be available. I want to thank you all for tuning in on this Mental Health Monday. I see Pam has joined and Tracy has joined, and also Sasha. Thank you all so much for joining in. I appreciate your time. If you caught it or you jumped on late, then I encourage you to go back and catch the replay. But I hope you all have a wonderful day. Enjoy your lunch break. Take care.